Some of San Diego's most desirable neighborhoods are starting to lose momentum, and we've actually been experiencing a cool down lately and seeing more inventory than before. And look, I work with buyers and sellers every single day, and the biggest mistake they make is treating all of San Diego like one big housing market. So today I'm going to share exactly what I've been experiencing and all the data to back it up. All right, let's get into it. Now, let's start with some areas that are cooling down, and I just want to be clear, these aren't bad places, and I actually really like some of them. It's just that buyers are having a hard time justifying the home prices. Maybe commute times are way too long, maybe it's the price tag, or it probably just topped out in value before some of the other places. Now, the first one I want to talk about is downtown San Diego, which has probably taken the biggest hit out of anywhere else in the county. We're sitting at 374 homes for sale, which is 26% more than last year, and we're up to 50 days on market, and the median sales price is down 5%. And look, we haven't seen home prices fall in San Diego for a long time, so it's definitely a completely different market. Now, condos are taking a hit almost everywhere in the county, and I'm going to talk about that a little bit more later on in the video, but downtown's condo market has probably seen the biggest declines, and the days of multiple offers are basically gone at this point. I think people are just tired of super high HOA fees, and anyone looking to buy in downtown has to basically justify $1,000 to $1,500 or more a month just for their HOA. Another thing working against downtown is the demographic. It's usually young professionals that want to live close to work and nightlife, and they're the ones getting squeezed the hardest right now. Most of them don't have money for a down payment, they're already dealing with a ton of student loans, and now you're asking them to buy a $700,000 or $800,000 condo, so the math just doesn't work anymore. And by the way, guys, I was born and raised in San Diego, and I've helped over 70 families buy and sell real estate here. So if you're thinking about moving anywhere in San Diego County, just call, text, or email me anytime, and I'll definitely help you out. All right, now let's talk about Oceanside, and I want to be specific on the different areas because there's basically two completely different things happening at the same time. So in the more inland pockets of Oceanside, condo prices are down about 3 to 4%, and detached homes are up only about 1%. And look, part of this comes down to who's buying out here in the first place. It's a lot of first-time home buyers, and most of the people buying around here are really sensitive to interest rates. And I get this all the time with buyers at this exact price point. So whenever rates go up a quarter or 0.5%, sometimes they don't even qualify for a loan anymore. So in almost every other place that's around that mid price point, they're actually seeing some real affordability pressure. Now, if we take a look at coastal Oceanside, this is where things get really interesting. Detached home prices are up almost 6%, and even condos are up 5%. And that's mainly because the buyer pool is totally different over here. I'm seeing quite a lot of second home buyers, and I think the biggest thing that's driving up these prices is everyone that's priced out of the more expensive coastal towns. So anyone that just can't afford Carlsbad or Encinitas, the next place they look at is South Oceanside. And I actually think this part of town is one of the best value plays in San Diego right now. You're still getting the beach lifestyle, there's great walkability, and it's literally just north of Carlsbad, so you're still super close to all their awesome amenities. All right, let's go down south back to Del Cerro. Now, I remember showing homes here about 1.5 years ago, and the market was just absolutely on fire. It felt like every house was getting multiple offers, and one of the houses we offered on ended up selling for $200,000 over the asking price. So it was just a wild 12 months around here, but it seems like things are much more steady now. Prices are down about 4%, but closed sales are up 10% from last year. So that tells me the demand is still there, but buyers aren't bidding way over the asking price anymore. And I know that might be a little bit confusing, but this is one of the clear signs that the market is normalizing. Sellers are finally pricing where the market actually is, and buyers are jumping back in. Now, look, a lot of these houses were built back in the 60s and 70s, so they're usually on the older side, and any house that's not in the best condition is probably gonna sit on the market. But let's say you're looking for a new house. Well, Del Cerro doesn't really have a ton of them, and just so you know, most of central San Diego doesn't have a lot of new construction, and if they do, it's usually condos or townhomes. So if you absolutely want a new detached house, you probably have to look around Chula Vista or up in North County, San Diego. And it's kind of funny because when I talk to people from out of state, sometimes they get really thrown off with how old some of the houses are. So that's just something you'll get used to. All right, that brings us to the next area, which is Fallbrook. And again, I don't think it's a bad place to live. I just think that people's needs are changing and they don't really align with Fallbrook anymore. Home prices surged when people were working from home, but if you fast forward to today, commute times are starting to matter again. Most people have hybrid jobs or they're back in the office full time, and Fallbrook's not really close to any major job centers. Places like UTC, Sereno Valley, downtown San Diego, and the drive from Fallbrook's easily an hour each way. Now, that didn't really matter when people were working from home, but now that commute time's a deal breaker for a lot of people. So basically what I'm seeing is that most buyers are way more selective about how far they're driving, and they want to be as close as possible to work. Now, home prices are down 3%, market time is all the way up to 60 days, and there's been about 3% less sales. And to me, that just means there's a way smaller buyer pool now. But if you're someone who wants a little more land and you don't mind being further out, you can actually get some bigger properties at a way more affordable price. So it's definitely not a bad place to live. It's just that from a market standpoint, it's starting to cool off. All right, the next area is South Escondido, and this is going to be the most expensive part of town, but it's starting to show some signs of slowing down. Now, I think a lot of this comes down to the wildfire risks. A lot of these properties back up to hillsides and canyons, and buyers are always asking me about insurance. Fire insurance has gotten expensive, and sometimes it's very hard to find, or you got to just go through the California Fair Plan. So this is basically a last resort that still allows you to get fire insurance when a private company won't cover it. Now, the downside is that it only covers fire damage, so you'll have to buy a second policy that covers everything else, and that means your insurance premium is usually higher than in a low-risk area. Another thing about South Escondido is that for a similar price, you can find a house in Oceanside that's closer to the coast. So I get buyers that compare these two places all the time, and most of them end up going for Oceanside. Now, you're probably not going to get as much land like you would in Escondido, but Oceanside's location is usually what people really love. You're closer to the water, there's a lot of great restaurants and different things to do on the coast, so there's definitely some trade-offs, but there's also some really big advantages. Now, I will say that if you really value privacy and having your own space, South Escondido is still a great option. It's cheaper than places like Rancho Bernardo or Poway, but the only thing is that the schools aren't as good, so if you have kids, that's definitely something to think about. All right, now if people are leaving some of these areas or they're moving to different parts of San Diego, then where exactly are they going? Well, there's basically two groups that I want to focus on, and the first one's retirees. So about 20% of San Diego's population is over 60 years old, and that number is expected to go up in the next 5 to 10 years. Most of these people are on a fixed income, and it's just really hard for them to pay these California prices. So now a lot of them are moving to less expensive places. So Arizona, Nevada, Texas, Florida. It's just a lower cost of living out there, and most of them can buy a house for cash and still have money left over. Now, this isn't causing some massive exodus from San Diego, and most people want to stay here if they can, but I do think it's a trend that's going to continue. All right, now the next group is people that are moving within San Diego County. So this group is way more lifestyle driven, or maybe things changed in their lives and they just need a different kind of house. Maybe they're in a smaller, older house and they want a bigger new house, or they just don't have enough room in a townhouse anymore and they're ready to move on to a detached home. Plus, I'm seeing a ton of empty nesters who are downsizing. They just don't want to deal with stairs anymore and their house is way too big for them. So a lot of times they're moving inland where you can find more of those one-story homes, and yeah, that's happening a lot in San Diego right now. Also, most new construction communities are doing really well right now. I'm seeing builders offering some amazing incentives, everything from interest rate buy downs to free solar or HOA for a year, free appliances, and a bunch of other things. Now, the only thing with new construction is that it's usually condos or 3-story townhomes. So if you want a detached house, there's only a few new communities in San Diego County. Also, keep in mind that most of these will have a Mello-Roos tax, which is basically an additional property tax. So the basic property tax rate is about 1.2%, and some of these new communities will be at like 1.5, 1.6%. So on $1 million home, that can mean an extra $250 to $300 a month. All right, now that you kind of understand what's been going on around here, the big question is, what does this mean if you're buying or selling a home here in San Diego? So let's start with buyers, because they definitely have more leverage right now and things are way different from a few years ago. And look, San Diego isn't just one big housing market. It's actually a bunch of different markets that are all a little bit different. So most listings aren't getting multiple offers anymore, which means you've got way more room to negotiate. But let's say you're looking in a more competitive market like San Marcos or Bejo, well, you're just not going to have as much room in those kind of markets. And this is where working with someone who understands all these different micro markets is really important. So someone who knows what's going on in that specific place and getting you the best price. And look, there's so many other things we can do other than lowering the price. So it really comes down to your personal situation and creating an offer around that. Also, if you're relocating to San Diego, it's really nice that things have calmed down a bit because now you have some time to check out all the different neighborhoods. And look, if you're new to San Diego, there's so many different pockets and lifestyles to choose from. So you want someone who can point you in the right direction. And like I said, I was born and raised here and I know all the different areas. So definitely reach out and we can talk about it. Now, on the other hand, for sellers, well, pricing wrong now is a big mistake. And the real issue is that overpricing doesn't just delay the whole process, it actually hurts the listing from the start. So I'm usually recommending sellers price slightly under market value. That's because with a more competitive price, we can try to spark multiple offers again and push the price up. And now whenever buyers see an overpriced listing, a lot of times they don't even want to go see it. And I hear this all the time from buyers. They just don't want to waste their time if the seller's being unreasonable. So you end up doing price reductions, you take your house on and off the market, and it just becomes a stale listing at that point. Also, the condition isn't optional anymore. And what I mean is that buyers don't want to spend extra money to fix up a property. So if your home has deferred maintenance, maybe it's not updated, whatever the case may be, either the price should reflect that or we need to clean things up before listing the property. All right, so that's exactly what's going on in the San Diego housing market. Older condos are taking the biggest hit right now, but it's really neighborhood specific. So it's definitely not falling apart. It's just moving in different directions. And if there's one thing to take away from this video, it's that national headlines about the housing market, they don't really tell you what's happening in San Diego. The real story is actually what's happening in the specific neighborhood you're moving to. So if you're looking for some local guidance and expertise, then make sure you reach out. All my information's on the screen and I'd love to help you out. Also, I have another video right up here where I rank a bunch of San Diego neighborhoods from worst to best, so definitely check that one out. All right, I'll see you in the next one.